This is part 3 of lesson 85. This is problem number 23 on page 357. Okay? It's mixed numbers. Before I do the first step here, before I do anything, is I'm going to change them all to improper fractions. So 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2 is 14. So this is 14 thirds x minus 1/5 equals 3 times 3 is 9 and 2 is 11. 11 thirds. I look at my denominators. I have a 3 and a 5. Because I have an equal sign, I'm eliminating my denominator. So the least common denominator for 3 and 5 is 15. I multiply every term by 15. Before I multiply, I simplify. 3 goes into 3, 1, into 15, 5. 5 goes into 5, 1, into 15, 3. 3 goes into 3, 1, into 15, 5. All right. 5 times 14 is 70. So I have 70x minus 3 times 1 is 3 equals 5 times 11, 55. I want to move my 3 to the other side by using the inverse of subtraction, which is addition. And I'm left with 70x equals 58. I divide both sides by 70. And I have x is 58 over 70, which we can simplify. Both of these are divisible by 2. So x is 29 over 35. That's 59 divided by 2 and 70 divided by 2. Last problem is number 26 for lesson 85. This was a long one, huh? All right, so we have x to the negative 2, y to the negative 1 outside the parentheses. And then inside the parentheses, I have x to the negative 1 over y to the negative 1 minus 4x squared y to the 0 over y to the negative 3 raised to the second power plus 1 over x squared y to the negative 1. All right, the first thing I'd like to do is for this that's outside that I'm going to be distributing, I'd like to make my exponents positive. They're both negative. It's really this over 1. To make them positive, I move them to the denominator. So it will be 1 over x squared y. So I'm going to change this to 1 over x squared y, and then I'm going to distribute. When I distribute a fraction, I multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. When I multiply variables, I add their exponents. 1 times x to the negative 1 is just x to the negative 1. I have an x squared. This is y to the first. Y to the first times y to the negative first. The rule is I add their exponents. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I have y to the 0 minus 1 times anything is the other thing. So I'm just going to write this numerator, and then I have x squared times y, and y to the negative 3 squared, a power raised to a power. The rule is I multiply. Negative 3 times 2 is y to the negative 6 plus 1 on the outside, I couldn't find it, times 1 is 1. Then I multiply denominator times denominator, x squared times x squared. The rule is add them. So that's x to the 4th. Y to the 1st times y to the negative 1st is y to the 0. All right, so now I'm left here. Okay? And it wants all of the exponents positive. y to the 0 power is just 1. So I'm going to leave it 1. I move my smallest exponent to where my highest exponent is. So I'm going to move that x to the negative 1, leaving a 1 in the numerator. And when I move to the denominator, it becomes positive. So that's 1 over x2 plus 1, which is 3. Okay? Minus, I'm going to leave my 4 in the numerator. My x squareds cancel because they're all multiplied. And actually, if I moved it to the numerator, it would be 2 minus 2, which is 0, and so that's 1. I also have y's here that cancel out. And this is negative. When I move it to the numerator, it becomes positive, so I'm just left with y to the 6th. And this last one, I have 1 over x to the 4th. This y is just 1. So I just have 1 over x to the 4th. You know what I'm thinking? That was supposed to be just 1 because this was supposed to be a negative 2. Okay, let's go back to this one. This should have been, I didn't write negative 2. So when I multiplied it, it should have been x squared times x to the negative 2. It should not have been x to the 4th. It should have been x to the 0. Okay? So now x to the 0, it's not over x to the 4th. We have x to the 0, y to the 0. It's just 1 over 1. Well, 1 over 1 is just simply 1. So here's your final answer.